Locked On Wolves podcast. We are live following the Timberwolves win over the Pacers. Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North joins the show live to break the game down. The Locked On Wolves postcast starts right now.
You are Locked On Wolves postcast, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. I'm live with Marney Gellner of Bally Sports North to talk through the Timberwolves win over the Pacers on Wednesday. And Marney, this was a fun one. The Wolves hadn't played in 4 days. And a game the Wolves got up big early. They were up 23. The Pacers came all the way back. And then the Wolves pushed right back. It was tied going to the fourth quarter, fun down the stretch. I just a really fun game overall.
It was, and there were swings of emotion in a game like this. Man, it was, we were up, we were down, and we were happy, we were sad, people were booing, they were cheering, it was all over the place. But to be up 35-17 after the first quarter, and then to go into halftime up 2 was just kind of the thought of like dread is on the horizon, and for the Timberwolves to be able to avoid that and put Indiana away when you know the Pacers just wanted to head home with a win. They've been on the road for a week and a half, 7th game of a road trip for them. I mean, that is a brutal stretch, and then for them to get this close in Minnesota and not be able to get it home, I think says a lot about the Timberwolves in the final minutes of the fourth quarter to be able to close the door. Yeah, it was emotional. It was a big win for the Wolves.
Yeah, and I mean, the Wolves came out, you mentioned the Pacers being on a long road trip. The Wolves came out exactly how you'd want them to. I mean, they came out and jumped on Indiana early, and I thought the tone was set early in the game by Rudy Gobert. We saw him far more aggressive on the glass than I know he still is one of the league's best defensive rebounders, but he had that game recently with 1 rebound, and even, with Towns, without Towns, it just feels like that hasn't always been there, that level of aggression on the glass. And on both ends of the floor, Rudy was beating guys to 50-50 balls. He was boxing guys out. He was out leaping guys, tipping rebounds to teammates. And then he kind of bookended it, fast forwarding all the way to the end of the game. Gobert hits the game go-ahead free throws in the final minute or so, and then has basically the game-saving block on Buddy Hield. This was kind of there was a lot of stuff obviously that happened in between, but Rudy set the tone early, and then he backed that up by bookending the game with a really strong finish.
And I wonder how much of that is just Rudy taking it upon himself after the way the last game went on Saturday when he was ejected in the second quarter for that flagrant 2, and which he said was his fault, and he felt really bad about not being able to be there for his team, especially with Karl-Anthony Towns already out with injury. So I think he took that kind of personally. He took that hard that he let his team down by not being able to stay in that game Saturday against OKC. So I bet that was part of his motivation tonight, because you're right, Ben. He had a double-double by halftime. He had 10 points, 10 rebounds by halftime, and then finished with 16 and 21. And that Buddy Hield block, oh my goodness, that was, if Hield makes that, it's a tie game, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And that was everything to stop that shot and then go hit 2 big free throws and then have a slam dunk in the final seconds to kind of just put a cherry on top of it. It was a very impactful game for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, 16 points, 21 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks for Rudy, and he was second on the team in plus-minus with a plus 15. Really efficient, made 4 or 5 free throws, including those big ones at the end. That's not the first time we've seen him make big free throws either, and he's said that before, that even though his percentage isn't always the greatest, he makes the big free throws. And he did that in this game. So really good performance from Rudy Gobert. I thought overall, offensively, if we want to start with another positive, or go talk about another positive here, the Wolves offensively were really good. I thought they had great offensive ball movement. There was one possession in the first half, I think it was late first quarter, where the ball went side to side. I think everybody touched it twice on the perimeter, and it finished with the Jordan McLaughlin drive and a dump off to Rudy Gobert with the dunk. It was just like the perfect possession when the Wolves are trying to play like a 4-out offense with Rudy Gobert kind of lurking around the paint. And there were multiple possessions like that. They played fast offensively. They pushed the pace, and obviously Indiana likes to play fast too. They actually play faster than the Wolves do in terms of number of possessions per game. But offensively, this was just a strong all-around performance for the Wolves.
It was, and I feel like a good reflector of the ball movement is Anthony Edwards' 3-point attempts. And when that number is pretty low, I mean, outside of, let's say he goes 6 of 8 or something, like you get the hot hand, you have to let it fly. I mean, this is the NBA, come on. But when Ant is only shooting 4 and 5 threes, as he's done the last couple of games, and he's still getting up 16 shots, that means he's good getting into the paint, and he's driving, and he's not settling. And that is just one little marker of Timberwolves ball movement, because he can sometimes be the guy that kind of is waiting to rock his defender to sleep and then put up a 3-pointer, and he can hit those, and we've seen him do it. But the problem is it just doesn't get any of his other teammates involved. They don't touch the ball. They don't get into a rhythm. The defense doesn't have to move around and all those things. Everything kind of gets stale. The ball gets sticky. But yeah, you're right. I thought that the ball did move a lot better. Kind of didn't as much in the second quarter, and you saw the result. Like Indiana just kind of went wild there. But the Wolves figured out a way to get back to what they were doing, to move the ball, to include everyone. A lot of Jordan McLaughlin minutes and Naz Reid minutes, and usually that means the ball is whipping around pretty good. So, yeah, from that side of things, that was a good night for the Timberwolves to get that ball moving.
Yeah, and a big part of that, obviously, is great point guard play. And both D'Angelo Russell and Jordan McLaughlin had very good games, especially late for D'Lo. I thought he had he played well overall in the game, but the fourth quarter was awesome. He had 16 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter alone. Jordan McLaughlin had some
15,
great stints, both in the first half. Yeah, 15 in the fourth quarter. McLaughlin had a strong close to the third quarter. He hit the buzzer beater at the end of the third, but beyond that, he was really good on both ends of the floor. And both Russell and McLaughlin were fantastic. McLaughlin, what do you have? 6 points, 4 assists in his minutes off the bench. And D'Angelo had that big fourth quarter. He had 28 points, made 4 3-pointers, 4 of 9 on threes, made all of his free throw attempts. And I thought controlled pace really well. And of course, hit those big shots down the stretch. And, it doesn't always go in for D'Lo in those moments, but he's willing to take the shot, and he can also get open enough to make tough shots. And he did that in the fourth quarter, but I also thought he made good decisions. I don't think it was forced, which sometimes it can be, I think, when he's trying to play hero ball late. I thought it all kind of came in the flow. The Wolves called some dribble handoff actions to get him some open looks at threes, and it all played together pretty nicely. And this was just a well-run game by both point guards for the Wolves.
Yes, agreed. And that shot that D'Lo hit in the final, 50 seconds maybe or so on the clock, he was on the right wing, and it was just inside the 3-point line, maybe a foot inside, and he lost his defender, so he was wide open, and it was just kind of one of those calm, cool, collected D'Lo shots where it wasn't even dramatic. It was just like, as he's shooting it, you're like, yep, that's in. And that was kind of just symbolic of how good and calm he was and effective he was. But 15 in the fourth and 28 for the game is, it was really, really good, especially in the biggest moments. And Jordan McLaughlin is, man, he can change the pace. He's so cognizant of what everybody else needs, because you read his stat line, Ben, and you hear that stat line, you're like, okay, 6 points, way to go. Kind of a minor impact in the game. But he actually has a major impact, especially when he plays as many minutes as he did tonight. Chris Finch pointed J-Mac out in the postgame as being a guy who really got this team back on track after it unraveled really quickly in the second quarter. So both point guards, yes, for different reasons and at different times, very effective, very good tonight.
I want to talk about some of the issues the Wolves had in the second quarter, kind of the middle part of the game when they had built the big lead and lost it. First, let's talk about our title sponsors of the postcast, and that's our friends at Prize Picks. If you took Rudy Gobert rebounds over tonight, you're in good shape. He finished with 21 boards. Head over to Prize Picks. You can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their Prize Picks projection on a number of categories, not just points and rebounds, some of the more common categories, but you could do steals or 3-pointers made, etc. And you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. You can also cross sports. So if you're watching on a Thursday night, you can do Thursday Night Football plus take something on the basketball side as well. You can make your entries in less than 60 seconds. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. Don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Marney, let's talk a little bit about the issues the Wolves had in the middle of the game. So second quarter, I think we saw some of those bad habits return related to just kind of sloppy turnovers. The Wolves would get a steal, and then it felt like they would be in such a hurry to go back the other way, which is obviously how they want to play. But, you know, Ant or D'Lo would make just a sloppy pass, turn it right back over. There were a lot of missed layups, and the Pacers got into the bonus early in the second quarter. It was like all the Wolves' worst habits, the turnovers, the missed layups at the rim, and the fouling all kind of happened at once in the second quarter, especially, and that's what allowed the Pacers to get back into the game.
And you know how sometimes we talk about the Timberwolves win a game and they feel pretty good about themselves, and they come out the next game and it's just totally different. They're flat and they can't put it together, and it's so disappointing. That is almost what I feel like what happened between the first and second quarter. Like, they dominated the first quarter and they were so good that then they just relaxed and they felt pretty good about themselves, and they just settled down and just kind of put their feet up. And then here come the Pacers in the second quarter, and the Wolves were just, they couldn't catch up. They were caught off guard. They reverted into all the old habits that you just talked about. It was almost like a microcosm of what's been ailing this team for a couple of seasons. Like, you do something well, and then all of a sudden you're pretty content with it, and you forget that the job's not done yet.
Yeah, and the Wolves were outshot in this game from outside the arc, which has not been that uncommon of an occurrence this year. But the Pacers, and they're obviously a really good 3-point shooting team, but they shot 45% from the field, or excuse me, from 3-point range in this game, 19 of 42. The Wolves took only 23 threes in this game and made only 8. So do the math on that. The Pacers scored they had 11 more 3-pointers. So they scored 33 more points on threes in this game. The Wolves in part overcame that because they out rebounded the Pacers by 20, which it's not very often this season we've been able to say the Wolves have out rebounded a team by anywhere near that much, or at all really, but much less by 20. The Wolves had 16 offensive rebounds. So while the 3-point shooting wasn't great, and they had some issues, I think it was mostly finding trailers in transition was an issue for them. I mean, Miles Turner killed them a couple times late in the game. The Pacers have a bunch of shooters, and the Wolves were just kind of like late getting back in transition, as we've talked about, the bad habits, the complaining about fouls, the bad communication, who's got ball, who's got the trailer. Some of those things popped up again, and thankfully the Wolves were able to kind of get some of those points back due to some of their work on the offensive glass. So, you know, I thought that was a positive.
That was, and I thought points in the paint too. The Timberwolves had 64, which is tied for the third highest number they've had this season. The highest is 74, and that was against Indiana 3 weeks ago. So the two of the three highest totals of points in the paint that the Wolves have had this season have come against the Pacers. And that was, I mean, when you're trying to make being outscored by 33 from the 3-point line, you got to really do a decent amount of work. And I feel like the Wolves did it by their paint scoring. We already talked about Anthony Edwards, like not settling for threes and getting to the rim, and the team looking for Rudy Gobert more, and just all of the things that led to those buckets and just getting to the hoop. So to make up that difference from 3 and doing it with 2s and doing it in the paint and on the boards and all those other things, it just shows you do enough little things right. You do enough things well that you can overcome a lot. And the Wolves did that. They had to overcome the 3-point shooting because, man, Indiana, woof. Yeah. When Miles Turner starts dropping them, and he did against the Wolves a few weeks ago at Indiana, but that's when you know you're like, oh, we got to buckle up, man. This is going to be rough.
Yeah, and Buddy Hield he has a history of going off against the Wolves for sure. And so that was a little bit scary as well in the first half, second quarter, really. I want to close by briefly talking about the Wolves bench. We talked about Jordan McLaughlin already, and he did have a really good game. But overall, the Wolves bench played well. And something I talked about on, I guess it would have been today's, so Wednesday's show on Locked On Wolves, is what is the rotation? What does the bench look like moving forward? Now that Wendell Moore Jr. started the last 2 games, the Wolves are getting healthier. Does he stay in the rotation? Luka Garza, I mean, he got his rotation minutes for the first time today. So they played well overall. I think everybody that saw the floor for the Wolves played well. It was a good Austin Rivers game too. Jalen Noel played extremely well, and was actually on the floor in crunch time up until they needed some defensive help. And then Rivers subbed in for defense. So really, to a man, the Wolves bench played well. And Chris Finch played 11 guys in this game. I mean, does he do that moving forward? You know, what does this rotation look like? Is he going to play the matchups? I think that'll be really interesting to watch.
I agree. And I feel like the Luka Garza minutes, he got 4 tonight, were sort of a test run of, all right, what does this look like? Seems like a safe place to try this. And it wasn't great tonight, but he's never going to get up to speed if he doesn't learn and if he doesn't get the opportunity in real live game situations. So I feel like they wanted to get a look at Luka Garza and see if this is someone that they can add into the rotation. So there's one extra player that may not get a whole lot of minutes. And that Wendell Moore Jr., I think, based on the praise that Chris Finch gave him, is somebody they feel like they can rely on when they need him, but it's going to probably be more situational and based on opponent and based on trends and all that stuff. So, I bet we're going to see a lot of mixing and matching and different starting lineups. And I mean, how did Wendell Moore Jr. goes from starting consecutive games to DNPing? And it's just, I mean, that the swings of playing time and guys who are going to be counted on are probably going to be pretty wild when you're getting to the end of the rotation, while Karl Anthony Towns is out and while the Wolves are just trying to figure out how to get through this stretch without him.
Yeah, and Taurean Prince should be back in the next couple of weeks too, and then you add in another guy who's definitely going to be part of the rotation. So that'll certainly be something to monitor. That's all we have for you today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching the Locked On Wolves postcast. We go live after each and every Timberwolves game on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube page. Be sure to subscribe to that, and then you can also subscribe and follow to Locked On Wolves. This will also be posted on all Locked On Wolves audio platforms as well. A big thank you for watching, a big thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.